first question is with that STEM. You are a transformational coach, and I want you to touch, David showed it. Yeah, I want you to touch a little bit on the mindset and also characters of entrepreneurship, and also how you, because you mentioned something very important to say. Start with what you have, because currently, as we are speaking in Namibia, youth unemployment is one of the main challenges, and just 2 weeks ago, there were some prediction to say around 15,000 just education graduates who are in the street and are not able to be employed. Maybe the question is that how can a graduate in any field use that foundation to go into entrepreneurship? I think I made my question very clear. And Dr. Shaanika, just on collaboration, because as young people, when we want to start a business, we are starting a business, one of the things that we are fighting for is to become a founder and a director, chief operation, and all those things. What is the power of, maybe just to clarify, the power of collaboration among young entrepreneurs when they are starting a business? Is it easy to go solo, or as a team? Yeah, and the last one is Mr. Anoshige. Maybe just to look at SMEs in Namibia. What keeps SMEs at the ground for a very long time, or at the survival mode? And how can we improve that? Yeah.
Panelists, did you get the questions? Okay, let's start with you, Mr. Sep.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Master Tweshi Pewa, for your question. And I think that will give me an opportunity. Sometimes I try to use this opportunity to educate. Firstly, NAMRA have three main mandates. One, to facilitate legitimate trade in Namibia. Second, which could be the number one, to collect revenue on behalf of the state. Third, to protect the Namibian society, especially the border, protecting society, because we're also responsible making sure that drugs and illicit goods does not come in, because that can destroy our nation. Revenue collection, of course, we have to collect that revenue so that government is able to fund public services, making sure that there are medicine in the hospital, teachers are paid, our elders, their social security or their pension is paid, and just making sure that they service, that there is law and order, because the police, they get their salary as well from the money that the taxpayers are paying. The reason why the Namibia Defense Force is well equipped and protecting our integral security is because of also that money. Just imagine if you do not have the army or the police, whereby people can just come and take whatever they want to take from you, and you will not even have a recourse where to go and be protected. So that function is very big. Now, there is sometimes conception that, NAMRA, why is NAMRA doing this? Why is NAMRA not doing this? There are two principles there. There's a principle called tax policy and tax administration. Now, within the confine of tax policy, that is where the laws are made. If there is a great proposal or there is a great policy that needs to be initiated, that is dealt with tax policy, but it's not, NAMRA is not involved in tax policy. It's an independent function within the Ministry of Finance, and that tax policy, it's then the one that can recommend a recommendation, a great initiative like that to be implemented into the law. Then you have tax administration, that is where NAMRA. Okay. You have tax administration, that is where NAMRA falls. That is now to implement the law as it is. But now, I think it's a great proposal, but again, just remember, when a business supposed have to pay tax, that means that business have done very well. Because if you have employees and you have paid those employees those salary, you know that those salary, you deduct it. Eh? You don't pay tax on that salary that you pay to the employees. So I'm just trying to think, you want again to be given another benefit on top of that, because that salary that you are giving, you're already deducting it from your income and you're not paying tax on that. Because I still, I think I see a follow-up question, maybe you think I missed his question, but what I really want to emphasize, we really need to make sure that all of us understand the importance for us as a country to strengthen domestic resource mobilization. I know some people in some sector, they are not pro-paying tax. But truth be told, especially now in the compromiso de Sevilla, or the commitment that we made last week in Sevilla, is that the only way now for us to fund our development sustainably is through domestic resource mobilization, because there is no money there like in the past for people to come and help us fund our development. Unlike in the past where people can get aid and so on. That is something of the past. Either you borrow, and when you borrow, you still have to pay that money as a country. So we need to hold hands together and pull in the same direction, mobilize resources, be it from taxes or from other revenue sources, and fund our own development. Because if we don't do that, the state will become weak. When the state become weak, when the state become weak or our tax administration become weak, the state is likely to become a failed state. And nobody, none of you would want to live in a failed state. Master Moderator, just before I conclude, 25 years ago, I worked in a steam. It was like a failed state. There, the only people that matters is someone with a gun or a machete. So you can have your house, I will come in, a militia will come in your house, take your documents, they just burn the deeds office. They will come in your house, they do whatever they want to do to you, to your wife, to your kids, they take your house. That is a situation of failed state. And therefore, that money that you are paying in tax contribution, even those who are not yet paying, you must have that attitude, like the people of Finland, where they get angry if they are not paying. 90% they are excited to pay, so that at the end of the day you can have good education, good health services, good infrastructure in terms of the road, because if your roads are very poor, there will be many accidents and you die. You need to be strengthen our state so that we are safer and we are able to achieve shared prosperity. I want to move to the question of Master Shombi on the mindset. How can a graduate use that foundation to go into business? What I have noted, if someone is even lucky to have a basic degree or qualification, that person is even lucky. But sometimes, and I want to know, I am very alive to the issue of unemployment in our country. And I'm also very happy to know that government is really doing its best to try to address the issue of youth unemployment. And I also do not know how many of you as youth people have read the African Peer Review Mechanism report of youth unemployment in Namibia, because you need to read this thing so that when you engage politician, when you engage leader, you are saying, in this report, African Peer Review Mechanism on Namibia, there are this recommendation, what are you guys doing? Or you read the manifesto, there is this component of the youth, what is being done and so on, so that you hold the leaders also accountable. But apart from that, when you have even a degree, you even have more advantage than in my case when I finished grade 12, and the only job I could take is an assistant taxi driver. Remember, not even a driver, it's an assistant, meaning that Kumbis, my work is to convince people to get there now, Kumbi to take them from Omandi Wakamania to Oshakati. Now, when you have a degree, one of them, in Namibia, and I need to be honest with you, I have traveled the world. I've been to China, I've been to Korea, I've been to wherever you can think of, to US, I've traveled. One thing that we need to change is in this country, when it comes to mindset, is work ethic. When our work ethics is not where it's supposed to be. We want 5 o'clock to knock off so that we can go and have great time and so on. If you go now to bars, now you go to some places, now people are already chilling and enjoying themselves. Our work ethics need to improve, both professionals, young people, and so on. I have someone that provides service to me. It's not a Namibian, and I will not talk about whether he's a doctor or an engineer or a coach or whatever. But I'm just saying that person is not a Namibian. He's forever available. I can call whatever time, weekend, is whatever available to come and give me the service. But the Namibians who are in the same sector like him, I tell you one thing, sometime when you call them in the weekend when they used to provide me the service, I'm not saying that. But I'm not saying, I want to say, I'm not criticizing all the Namibians, but I'm saying in general, our work ethics need to improve. You get at work, 5 o'clock people want to knock off. When I worked in the central bank, for example, and by that time I wanted to study law. Now I have family to take care. 5 o'clock, I have to go to classes every day from 5 o'clock up to 10. Then weekend, you have to go to church, you have to play soccer and so on. I'm just giving you an example. So our work ethics need to change. Now, coming back, now for us to build Namibia within 4 years, it means I have to stop the night of inspiration a little bit. I have to stop, I only coach 10 people per year. I don't have time to coach everyone and so on. But if you call me at a group like this, I'll always come during the weekend. But what is that we need to change? Most of our people, if they study, they have a law degree, they have an engineering degree, they have a teaching degree, that is all they want to do. I've seen people in the environment I grew up where they will think, me to work in a restaurant. I have seen people saying, me to work in a bar, or I mean to work in a restaurant where my colleagues and fellow colleagues are coming and they see me there. And the person telling me that does not even have a degree. So if you have a degree, to me I say, start with whatever comes forth. You never know what opportunity will come out of that. You can even work at a kindergarten, teaching the kids, they're helping the owner of that kindergarten. The parents of those kids, people will eventually maybe recognize you and recommend you. You can work start wherever you are, where other people can see you. Why do we have people from Zimbabwe working here, some of them with a master's degree? And remember, Zimbabweans, they are highly educated. Their education is much better than ours. I can tell you that. I've been in class with them. Anyone who has been in class, their high school education is better than even South Africa. I can tell you that. But mastered MBA, the person is working as a nanny. And he starts coaching the child and doing the assignment. They get noticed. Before you know it, they are having many kids that they are doing tutoring and they are getting paid. So your degree, you must use it to start wherever you are. I started as a taxi driver. You can use it even going to buy things from Chinatown and start selling. And as you sell to Tata Shaanika, you say, oh, then say, but because during the conversation, the person will pick up, oh, this guy, oh yes, sir, this guy is knowledgeable. From that, an opportunity can come up, or come together and start teaching something, or coming up with something. I feel pity with our colleague, with our Namibian who are the unemployment. We have to address it, but also, my friend, Mesindano say your future is also in your hand, my friend. I can speak openly because I never used government. I have never used government study loan. NASFAP does not know me. Did not apply for NASFAP does not know me. No one from my family will have paid my education except my mother and my father. But we need to have that obligation to want to give not only what can be done for us.
I think there some questions for Josiah and Mr. Shaanika. Yes.
Yeah, well, my question was on collaboration, and I don't know how many of you grew up in the village like me. And when we were growing up in the village, there was no electricity. I think at that time when I was growing up, even in Shakati, there was no electricity. And at night, the elders would send you to the neighbor's house at night when it's dark. And it's scary. You always want to ask, even if that person is only 6 years old, you say, can we go together? Not because this person has really the ability to defend you if something comes, but it just feels safer to be two, right? It's always better to be two, to have a companion. Entrepreneurship is a very lonely journey. It's a very, very scary journey. Like we're scared of being sent to the neighbor's at night. And therefore, it's always better to have some companion in your entrepreneurial journey. It's always better to have some partner of some sort than being alone. I know that a lot of people like to be the only one. You know, I want to be the only one, I want to be the only one shining, but it's always better that you are more than one. It helps a lot. Even in terms of ideas, when you want to develop new ideas, develop a new business model, you want other opinion from your partners, from other people. So it's always better. If you can do it alone, please go ahead, but the best is always to collaborate with others. Don't bother too much about positions or titles. Titles are meaningless, really. Even if you call me a cook, but I run a business that is making money, that's making a profit of 20 million, I'm still a better cook than a CEO who makes $10,000. Am I not?
No.
Exactly. So position or a title is nothing really. What is important is that your idea gets executed and you are collaborating and you are working well and you embrace other people's opinion. Don't always be the one right. Sometimes if you are always right, you are not going to succeed. And there are people with that habit is always right. Whatever I say must go. You need to embrace other people's opinion, consider others. Of course, you can't just accept anything, but make sure that other people's opinion are considered in achieving a decision. But it's always good to be together. Even if those people are not necessarily shareholders in your business, but they are somehow making a contribution one way or another, providing coaching, support, and so on. Maybe finally, just one thing that I wanted to say, since I'm sure we are coming to close to the end of the discussion, is that there are the issue that Mr. Shikuta here was talking about, the work ethics. I think our success as an economy will really be defined by our work ethics. And I have seen a lot of good work ethics in Asia, many Asian countries. And in Namibia, if I come to your shop wanting to buy and it's closing time, they just say it's closed. Don't come, it's closed. There was when I was at the NCCI, there was a group of French tourists who came to my office to complain about the closing time of businesses in Namibia because of their experience in Swakopmund. They wanted to buy jewelry from a jewelry shop, and they even took out cash, euros. Hey, we have money, want to buy. Then they said, close. You know, inside. And they say, we have money, want to buy. Said, no, we're closing time, close. In other countries, you don't say no to money. If you want to succeed, you really want to grow and scale up. There was a time I was in China, we went to buy suits. And this friend of mine was flying to London that same day, and he wanted his suits. 3 suits. And this tailor says, I can make them. Are you sure today? I'm flying early in the morning. Yes, I'll make them. And we went for dinner. At 11 o'clock at night when we came to the hotel, we found that Chinese guy sleeping in the couch waiting for his client to see if he can fit in the suit. He said, if you can't fit, I can still go back and make amendments. At 11 o'clock at night. I'm very certain in Namibia, if you can come, done, another customer will come. I just wanted to add to what Mr. Shikuti was saying, that work ethics, if you're in business, work hard and provide excellent service and be competitive. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Shaanika and Shikuti. I think hopefully young people hear that, if you don't work hard, unfortunately in life, it will pass you by. And I think perhaps also talks to my question. Is really about what keeps businesses down for a long time. I think first things first, actually, I framed it as entrepreneurial drive, but again, it's probably to do with the work ethic. If you don't work hard on your business, you can have the best idea in the world, it will not prosper. And then secondarily, entrepreneurial skills, all right? And what does that mean? Really, you actually know what you're doing to build a business. It's quite important. I think the first, and I've learned over time, the most important entrepreneurial skill one should have, apart from your product, Ansh has done, is business development. What are you doing to build your business? Are you going out there pitching to people? Are you going out there looking for the right opportunities for financing, for product improvement and all of that to be able to build a business? If you don't have that, it's very difficult. And then on top of that, it's also understanding the industry. Again, I guess it goes to, do you actually have the right knowledge for the industry you're in? Or, because many people will find very fast if you don't know what you're doing, and they will not buy from you, and your business will not prosper. And then the last one is the business model you're operating in. Maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe yes, I've seen some businesses, and I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. The business is making sales, but then the margins are not there, meaning that you're basically operating at a loss. Sometimes you don't even realize it, right? You're selling a product at $10, which you are manufacturing, all right? And then you think, okay, no, but I'm manufacturing at $8, but I'm selling at $10, therefore I make a $2 profit. But no, you haven't taken into account perhaps your employee cost, you haven't taken into account your rental, and on all of that. But maybe for whatever reason the market is not willing to pay more than $10, or maybe you need to increase your price. So I think those are the main reasons why business fail, at least from my experience. Thank you.
I think it's vital that I mentioned that my panelists are not just experts, but I think it's profound that I just highlight that they are pioneers in their fields and they are forces to be reckoned with. Can you please give them another round of applause? All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next item on our program allows us to shift gears into the banking and fintech and finance landscape within our country. So, but before we dive into that, I'll just like us to take a quick stretch break, and then we'll officially resume with our program. Thank you.
There's all these different industries, and I said I want to go into media, I want to be a journalist, and my mom looked at me like, no, it's fine now. I'll pay for your studies. And my uncle looked at me and he said, media, where is there even money in media? What is this? So I really appreciate that I didn't give up because the work that I do now, I'm even coaching other people, and some of the skills that they speak about is even public speaking, which you guys, even as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to speak clearly and articulate yourself clearly. So it's not something I went to study. I was very lucky. I studied in Cape Town and I didn't want to leave. I was enjoying myself so much, so I did a little television presenting course there, just a small one there, and look where I am today. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you for Mesindano for inviting me to this platform to meet a lot of you young people. And I have the unfortunate part of, the afternoon is like the graveyard shift, as they say in radio, but I hope that we'll still have this conversation and we'll still be engaged as we discuss finance, banking, fintech in that space, and also what opportunities are there. So let me call my panelists. I'd like to call upon Candy Ngula. She's the head of e-money at Bank Windhoek. Let's give her a round of applause. And then I think we've already had Josiah here. Josiah, please. Director, Seed Capital Fund of Namibia. So thank you so much to my panelists. Our discussion is really around banking, finance, and fintech. But perhaps just to set the stage, I was just looking a little bit before our discussion in terms of fintech and the advancements of fintech. And globally, when you think about the countries that are really leading, it's the US, it's Singapore, Germany, so many other countries. And then in Africa, it's South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, and others. And we don't see Namibia on that list. So perhaps let's just set the stage. Perhaps let's just talk about what is fintech firstly, and I'll start with you, Candy.
Good afternoon, everyone. So you mentioned jurisdictions that we would say they're far on the journey when it comes to your financial technology. So it's a buzzword and it's quite simple. For instance, finances has always been there and technology has also always been there essentially. And there's been many traditional approaches when it comes to banking or making payments. If you look at the evolution of money, we used to have the barter system initially, right? So I give you 2 cows, you give me 10 chickens and so forth. Money has really walked a journey, and even when we talk about fintech, it's stemming from the evolution and the journey that money has walked over the years. So at some point people used to use even stones, you know, and then they moved to your gold, and then they moved to your coins, and then they moved to your paper-based money. For instance, your notes, you had checks, and then from an industrial revolution point of view, technology then started coming through years later with your credit card. So you now have the plastic and everything. And then the internet age then obviously enabled now the transfer of value, later from your computer as an example and so forth. And then now we're seeing mobile money. So if I think back to the role that I'm in and the career that I've had currently in the mobile money avenue, in 2007, you've heard of M-Pesa. You mentioned Kenya. So I think M-Pesa is a global case study. So they would be regarded as an entity that took advantage of technology and merging it with finance. And what happened in 2007 was when M-Pesa launched initially, they were owned by Safaricom, which is in the MNO space, mobile network operator. So that's like saying MTC or MTN or Econet and so forth. So they could see that the banking industry, and this is well known around the world, banks are very traditional. That Mesindano Shaanika also mentioned that traditionally banks are very risk averse and also debt financing primarily. So now in Kenya, financial inclusion was very, very low. And if you compare that financial inclusion to Namibia, I think in 2017, under the FinScope study, our financial inclusion was at 78.1%. That's very high compared to other African countries. In Kenya at the time, M-Pesa found an opportunity. They said, okay, so we are an MNO, and you have more people have mobile phones or cell phones than they have bank accounts. Number 2, the banks are mostly focused on your, let's say, urban areas, because that's traditionally how banks are. You go to them. They're not necessarily the type that would go to people, although that's changing now, because disruption is also happening. So they have to respond to the disruption. So Safaricom then said, okay, people have cell phones, and they're able to send money from, text messages between one another. And text messages is really just your ones and zeros at the back. If you can send a text message from one phone to another, you can also send value from one phone to another. That's how mobile money started. It started within the MNOs because they saw an opportunity where banks were not necessarily serving, rural areas in Kenya. So a lot of people were underserved and unbanked. And obviously, the rest is history. They became a global case study. So that's essentially how the space that I'm in started. So when we talk about wallets, e-wallets, easy wallets, and so forth, that's the history of it. It was started because telcos were able to say, more people have cell phones in the world than people have bank accounts. So we can actually enter the financial services space, merging mobile technology. So in short, that's just a practical example. So in essence, fintech is really making use of your innovation or digital tools to enhance financial services. That's really it. That's at the simplest term, but it's also multifaceted. So fintech has to do, let's say, dealing with topics about access, dealing with topics about financial inclusion, dealing with topics around affordability, topics around digital literacy, and so forth. Because if you're going to get into the fintech space, and if that's what we're going to drive as Namibians, we also need to embrace the level at which our people are at. Yes, we're trying to drive the digital evolution and making sure, okay, let's have digital payments and all those things, but you have to move at the pace of your people. So yes, these buzzwords and trends are very exciting, and they are huge potential for Namibia. But we also need to make sure that we have to serve the needs of the people. And we don't do that enough, especially when I joined in this role. One of the things that I started appreciating more is, yes, we speak of demographics, you know, how many women, how many men, age groups, youth. As Namibians, I think across the board, and the Asia and the West does this very, very well. We don't appreciate the concept of psychographics. Psychographics, you have demographics, right? And even if you look at the NSA report, there's a lot of demographical statistics there, but we don't study psychographics, the psychology behind why people use products. Another word for that is jobs to do. Why would Candy, if Candy has a job to drive, to send money to her mother, that's my job, that's my duty, whether it's I'm doing it out of duty or out of love, that's all I want to do. Why would she choose one product or bank over another bank in order to do that? If you have to buy a car, you just want to go from point A to point B. Why do you choose Toyota over a BMW? Loyally. So there's a certain part of the ecosystem that if you understand why people do what they do, it also helps you in your entrepreneurial journey as well. But we don't do that enough. We just say, okay, Primrose started a salon, I'm also going to start. Tara started a bar, I'm also going to start a bar. I see a lot of copycatting in Namibia. So I think it's quite a broad topic, very multifaceted. Some of the things are very obvious at a surface level, but there's a lot of undertone, I think, as Namibians we need to start appreciating. But in essence, that's really what fintech is. And I think the other angle I want to just bring in is, we're speaking of entrepreneurship, but I think we should also be touching on, and I hope I can get into this a bit as part of our conversation. There's entrepreneurship, but there's also intrapreneurship. And that is so important. There are many famous people, public figures locally, around the world, that have made a name for themselves and that have made a difference even by being an intrapreneur. That Sam is one of those, Tara Shaanika is one of those. Sheryl Sandberg, who was the COO of Facebook, she made Facebook to what it was. She was really that tipping point. Sheryl was an employee of Facebook as a COO, and she was a brilliant intrapreneur. So it's a journey, I think, that you have to tie to what you believe is your purpose on earth. Not everybody necessarily needs to be an entrepreneur. They are brilliant intrapreneurs that are making a huge difference in the world as well. So I'll just leave that at there for now. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Candy. Perhaps, Josiah, just to touch on Candy's remarks, also looking at financial literacy, perhaps that's also a starting point, is that you've got fintech, which speaks to finance and technology, and the level of financial literacy, I think bringing Namibians and consumers into that space. Perhaps just touch on that.
Yeah, I think that's quite an interesting view, another question. And I can perhaps speak from my experience. I think I've done a lot of I've started a lot of business in my life. I've probably started more than 10 at this point in time, and just, and such. And I remember one of the businesses I started was maybe 5-6 years ago. Was a business in in e-commerce. All right, so the premise of e-commerce is that you obviously buy things online, and and then you get them delivered at home or wherever else. But a big stumbling block I realized, or why people are not necessarily using the platform, is because they didn't trust using their cards, to pay online, because they have this belief that if I give my card, perhaps also some unknown platform, that you'll steal my card number and obviously my details, and then you end up stealing my money. And obviously the fear is real. I mean, even I frequently use my debit and credit card to buy things online, But I realized it's so simple. All I need is your card, and then I have you put in your number and in the back. Obviously now there's more security now where you have to go to the app and I'm an FNB client and such, and then I can authorize. But back in the day, especially with Google Pay, I realized that doesn't happen. So the fear is real. No, I'm just getting to that. But obviously there are security measures in place to prevent that data being stolen and such. But I think because of people not being educated on it, they tend to not use the available payment methods in such. And I guess that speaks to that issue of financial literacy and really understanding how this payment platform works. What are the security in place to protect our consumers or users of these platforms and such. So I think that is one area that's an issue. Again, on the other side is perhaps also in Namibia, and I don't know if this speaks to the question, but the lack of skills to actually understand, number one, build the platform, and number two, understand how the financial ecosystem actually works in Namibia to be able to make these financial products actually successful. Yeah.
All right, Josiah, I'll stick with you because we are touching on entrepreneurship and getting into this fintech space. Perhaps just share with us what entrepreneurial opportunities still exist for Namibian youth in developing fintech solutions. And perhaps, Candy, you can also touch from the banking side of things, especially given that there is a lot of disruption in this space.
I think there's a lot that actually exists, but I think, again, we first need to overcome the issue about the lack of skills to develop products that actually speak to the market. And one thing that is actually being done by the Bank of Namibia, I think, I think we invited to a launch about a week or two ago. They launching this. It's called DPI, Digital Platform. I forgot the whole name is, but what they're trying to do is basically merge three things that are an issue for developers in Namibia. Number one, they want to provide a platform that allows any fintech entrepreneur to plug into it. So basically create an API into that. So they don't have to kind of build the payments gateway and all of that. They provide that at a very reasonable cost, because currently it's very expensive. Secondarily, it's issue of verification, right? So if anyone works in payments or financial services, something that's a big issue right now, especially and obviously we want to get off the blacklist of the EU is really the issue around anti-money laundering and KYC and such. So they really help you with that. So basically they will verify the people on that platform. And thirdly is around the issue of data exchange. So you are then able to perhaps get the data that is from Home Affairs to a certain extent to help you really build your platform. And I think if that is implemented as it should, and I know right now it's really just in conversations, and I know Bank of Namibia really wants to push it through, and hopefully the other parties within government play ball with them, so we're able to implement that. It's a huge opportunity. You don't really need to build your own payment gateway on site. You just need to be able to focus on your particular niche area within fintech. You plug in, and then you are able to verify people, get the data, and then you're able to build a business around that.
All right, so Candy, from the banking sector, banking side of things, what are some opportunities there, especially for the young people in terms of entrepreneurship?
Right. I'll go back to the point that I made earlier, because I don't want us to lose sight of some of the fundamental or the foundation that one would need for entrepreneurship. So at times I think we try to skip the foundational elements. We have romanticized the success stories that we've seen, let's say from Silicon Valley. And Mesindano Shaanika also mentioned the difference between, let's say, our ecosystem, Namibia, and America. So those guys have a high risk funding culture. So in Silicon Valley, you'll find that other successful entrepreneurs, they fund up and coming entrepreneurs as well. Whereas in Namibia, I think it's a bit different, whether you're looking at it from a banking point of view or from even local entrepreneurs that are successful. What are we doing as a group to enable not just mentoring, but also actual to say, I will fund you and I'm not going to ask a huge stake into your company. I will try to walk that journey with you. I think there's a huge cultural and mindset change we also need to have, I think, as Namibians, to build entrepreneurial ecosystems for ourselves. In the banking space, so these are long-standing institutions. They can also feel that they are being disrupted for, let's say, either by regulation, because as Yesa mentioned, the regulator is also really trying to create an enabling environment for fintechs to level the playing field. It's been long run by your banking institutions. And I'm not saying that in a bad light. Banks still have a very, very important role to play in the economy and in society as well. If I look at what's currently disrupting the banking space, just at a high level, a lot of if we talk about our society, a lot of it is concerning financial inclusion. And that is a topic that even the central bank has been trying to drive for the longest time. And financial inclusion really speaks to 3 or 4 things. It's access to financial products and services, meaning proximity. So if we look at the banks, do we have enough? What are some of the access points that customers usually would have to access their money? It's either ATMs, or traditionally it's either ATMs, or let's say your shops with POS devices, or a bank branch. Those usually are the 3 things that you would have. Or maybe then you have also internet banking. But when we're looking at the lower level of society from a financial inclusion point of view, those are individuals that are usually very underbanked or unbanked. So I think a very practical opportunity that I'm seeing is emerging in Namibia. They've done it brilliantly in Kenya, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, is agent banking or agent network when it comes to, let's say, your mobile money. So whether it's accounts or wallets. So Bank of Namibia also has agent banking guidelines to enable banks to partner, let's say, with merchants or even small businesses or cooker shops in rural communities where people are able to come into cash in, cash out, or even remit their money and so forth. So we're not quite there yet. But from the space that I'm in and what I'm trying to personally drive as an intrapreneur within the bank is to really drive the agent network. And to drive financial services and products into your underserved or unbanked communities. Not for us to take a branch everywhere, not for us to take ATMs everywhere, but to then say, okay, you are a trusted community shop owner.
And the third part of it, which is unfortunately we don't currently have, is that access to capital right now, especially in early stage startups. So that is why earlier on you said I'm the director of Seed Capital Fund in Namibia. So that's another organization I helped start. But in this case, what Seed Capital does is say, look, it's a non-profit. We then raise money from individuals who want to basically invest into society. So that takes the risk on entrepreneurs by using equity. And then if the business fails, there is no harm to the entrepreneur. Say, look, it's fine, we understand. As long as you really try, it succeeds. The idea is then, over time, you're able to buy back the equity from the seed capital fund, goes back to the pot, and it revolves. Right, so that's part of it. And then on a commercial point of view, that's why we then started the Bellatrix, and Bellatrix and assists entrepreneurs with various instruments, to fund you, uses equity as well as debt to be able to finance you. So and that's really how we've been helped to support entrepreneurs. But I think a missing link again, I think when we're facing it, and I think that's perhaps the reason why the Bank of Namibia decided, okay, let's just build a platform for fintechs to go into it, because like Kenny spoke to, although is now changing mindset of the banks, typically they would not work with fintechs, and main reason raised typically would be competition or security of the system, right? And hopefully that if that is it made easy, because also building the system is extremely expensive as well, apart from having the right skills. Hopefully now, if the playground is now leveled, once you have the skills, you have the financing, entrepreneurial skills, you have the financing, you have the technology, you'll be now able to compete in the market and really be successful as an entrepreneur.
Perhaps, Josiah, I think I want to just continue touching on the regulatory sort of environment, and how Candy, you've also mentioned that you've got the Bank in Namibia, you've got Namfisa, they have these, they're sort of trying to also get into innovation and also encourage innovation and have these different sandboxes to allow entrepreneurs to get into the fintech space. Perhaps maybe some advice to the regulators in terms of ensuring that fintechs can really thrive, because we still are very new. We're very new to this innovation space. What's some advice do you have, especially for regulators in that space and for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think the regulator I work with is your employer, by the way, Namibian. And unfortunately, yeah, look, whatever can be said, but I think
This is a safe space, eh?
yes,
Please,
I think our regulators in general have a very what do I want to call it? They're not open-minded. It's just black and white. If the regulation says X, and then they typically would just keep to that. They don't, and they don't give benefits. Obviously, that's why. Hopefully, that's now obviously they realize that's why they have the regulatory sandboxes, which have their own flaws. Because getting in there, it's another challenge in its own. And so it's very archaic, kind of way of regulating. Unfortunately, from my perspective, right? They do not necessarily allow for innovation, and when you try to innovate, they come shut you down very fast. And it's really a big issue. I've seen, and trust me, I've tried to innovate within the space I've been, and I've experienced that backlash. And then it's so there is a need to be open to innovation in Namibia, and just because someone's innovating, and it doesn't necessarily speak to what's currently in legislation. I think there's perhaps a way to try to perhaps come up with particular regulations that enable that positive innovation in the country. And the alternative, what happens is when you're in black and white, right? What I've seen as well, which meaning that sometimes an innovator within the financial space comes in, but it's not written in the law, right? So it's in the gray area. What I've seen they typically try to do is they just shut it down. They don't try to entertain it at all. And so there's a lot that needs to be done from the regulator's perspective to try to accommodate innovation. And I feel typically the sandboxes they've put in place, and unfortunately, look, and we can speak honestly and honestly. We know Namfisa as a sandbox. We know Bank of Namibia as a sandbox. Which innovation have you seen come out with? Anyone? No, because but there are those. But I know entrepreneurs in it. But it just because, unfortunately, those who are responsible for ultimately making the decision from a regulation point of view, even though there's best intention from those who run the sandboxes.
You have different types of employees in an organization. How many of you are employed? Even if you have a side hustle, is everybody fully in their own business, self-employed? Okay, how many people work for a company in this room? Okay, so everybody else is purely self-employed. How many people are self-employed? There's a gap there. Some of you are not picking up your hand when you should, or maybe there are students who are unemployed. Okay, so the reason I have an appreciation for entrepreneurship is because you have employment, yes, and sometimes we tend to focus, I want to be an entrepreneur. And there's a lot that goes with that. But take, for example, a local example, Beronice Hans, who just left Bank as the CEO. You have stories like that where the type of employee that person is, when it comes to entrepreneurship, are people that drive their career at those organizations as though that is their own business. work ethic that the same spoke about, excellence, drive, energy. Because I always look, you always have two different types of employees. You have employees that come in and they clock in, and sometimes 4:30, like in the banking industry, 4:30, the same people go home at that time. They won't even stay 1 minute later. To Tati Sam's example. And then you have employees that, yes, they'll still have a work-life balance, but you know they are operating at a whole different level, as though they own that. So for me, that's what entrepreneurship is. It's really being an employee that has a leadership mindset, that has a CEO mindset. I tell my graduates and my interns and even my team, the area that you're responsible for, run it as though you are the CEO of the secretarial role that I've given you. Run that role as though you are the CEO of the product development. So there's a certain spirit and character and energy that comes with being an intrapreneur. So now if you look at the local example, Berenice, she's worked for Nampower, she was there for 3 years. She's worked for Standard Bank 7 years. Then she was at Convened, took 9 years. So that's about 19 years. And what entrepreneurship does and how it ties to entrepreneurship, now when you're on your own, people like that have built up so much experience that you might say, oh, but she's only doing that at the age of 40 or 50 and so forth. Yes, you can start young, but there are also pros and cons to starting young or to starting later. So she will leapfrog wherever she needs to go to. She's built social capital, there's trust because we've seen her deliver, and she's learned operations, she's learned team management, she's gone through everything, and that's essentially a similar journey that I've taken where because for some people you don't find that idea. It might come later in life. You don't have to force yourself to say, oh, but I feel so left behind, I need to be an entrepreneur and I'm turning 50 no. Learn the skills you need to learn even before you become an entrepreneur. You can learn by working for somebody else, but you have to make the most of your employment and your career to really learn the ropes. By the time you want to venture out of your own, you've learned so many skills, soft skills, technical skills, and very, very important, sales. That's also another thing. Public speaking and sales. Those are things we also don't take quite seriously, I think, when it comes to entrepreneurs. Public speaking, you should be able to speak with conviction. You should be able to engage your audience. You should understand your audience. You should be able to negotiate. You need to have, a very well-structured talk or pitch and everything. So even if you put a pitch deck together, are you able to deliver your pitch deck in a structured way that touches on the problem and what the solution is that will then be that you'll be bringing to the table? So entrepreneurship is really for some people, because everybody's on their own path. You don't have to feel the pressure that you must be an entrepreneur and all that. Like Yesaya mentioned, you can start different things and sell them and so forth. And the examples of that as well, where people have started something, they sell it, they go into something new. You'll also see, I think Yesaya mentioned it earlier in the previous panel, you need to have a certain level of skill and understanding in the entrepreneurial area that you're going into. Sometimes with Namibians, maybe it's because we have a huge public sector employment versus the private sector, but we're very tender driven. And the whole tender thing, and now, okay, you don't even have experience in that space, but it's now become about who do I know, and this thing, and I'm going to go for that, but the skills aren't necessarily there. But we're more money driven and status driven than we are purpose driven. And so there's a whole lot to entrepreneurship. Before you even when you talk about fintechs, before you get to the fintech, there must first be a financial service that you were offering, and then you find technology that enables that so that you can scale. But before you even get to the technology, what were you doing before? What's the track record that you have to show that, okay, I was giving financial advice and people were paying me. But now I want to scale. Okay, and I've now built a customer base, so I can build that financial advice, maybe now through an app that people can subscribe to, or through a Facebook or YouTube channel, things like that. But you must first and foremost, when you have an idea, you find your market that needs that idea. And then you will have your product to solve whatever problem that you have found. Then you build a business around it. And a business is something that just happens over and over and over and over, essentially. When you have that repetition, then you say, okay, how can I enable this by digitizing it? If it needs to be digitized, and will the same customers that will buy my product or engaging in my service, will they use this digital tool that I want to? Or are you just going digital because that's the buzzword? Will those same people migrate into using that digital product? Do they have the digital literacy levels? Do they have the appetite? And is that product seamless? Is there network, ICT services where that your digital product needs to be used? Because even in the banking space, we can't do it alone. We might want to digitize banking and payments, but you also need ICT, network, and all those things as well. So yeah, in closing, I think entrepreneurship really is something that you shouldn't take for granted. If you're an employee who has a dream of becoming an entrepreneur, test yourself first. How will you first handle somebody else's business before? Because if you can't do that, entrepreneurship is hard. You won't be able to do it for yourself.
Right now, just say thank you for that, Candy. And a round of applause, please. I think it's the basics. We need to start with the basics before we can even get into the fintech space. Just say, I think also just touching on the foundations of entrepreneurship is, given that you also work in Basecamp and assisting startups, perhaps some advice also when it comes to starting up a business, some of the challenges that you pick up, especially when you have startups that are starting their businesses.
Yeah, again, apart from, that's what we mentioned already in terms of actually having the skill and knowledge of the industry, I think that's sometimes an issue we find of the bad entrepreneurial business. You want to replicate, but you just don't know how it works, skill-wise or industry knowledge. Apart from that is issues around idea validation. Have you done market research for that particular business you're entering into, or you're just going headfirst in and hoping for the best, and typically that is the start or beginning of the failure of many businesses, a lack of market knowledge and research, so that's the first thing, please do that. Secondarily, once you have done your market research, work on a viable business model, all right? And that also best, includes putting together a business plan that you drafted yourself, not getting a consultant to draft a business plan for yourself. And I think that's another thing I've seen. So what we try to do at Basecamp is we actually try to take entrepreneurs through a process, and it's not a short process, by the way, it's a 3-month process, where we teach you the basics of entrepreneurship skills. We teach you around idea validation, we teach you around business model development, we teach you skills, from, you can call it a mini MBA, whatever you want to call it, but from marketing, sales, business development, legal and compliance, and all of that type of stuff, and then give you a template, business plan, say, look, draft the thing yourself to not go to anyone else. And by the time you hopefully finish, you'll be in a position where you'll be confident with your business, and you go to any financier, even if you have zero, money in your bank account, you can hopefully walk away with some startup capital for you to start and build your business.
Perhaps also with the evolution of artificial intelligence. I think you spoke about the business plan. We go to ChatGPT and the Geminis, and we go ask them, draw up this business plan. What are the risks in just, especially when it comes to doing market research and things like that, what are the risks and also opportunities there in terms of making use of artificial intelligence, making use of technology to start up your business plan, or to draft at least something, at least just to get somewhere?
Let me give you a practical experience we recently went through. So, the company I run is called Bellatrix Investment Managers, right? So we got a small mandate from the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, to run a facility, on-granting facility, basically, to support entrepreneurs, and such. with the first initial funding, right? So we funded seminary between $50,000 to $150,000. So we took them through this to a 2-month entrepreneurship development program. So and one of the mentors in that program, because you go weekly, you go through you get basically a facilitator who's an expert in the field. So one of the things we then thought, okay, let's also introduce AI, the use of AI and such. So we told them, look, there's no problem using AI at all, as long, again, as you have a skill and understanding of what you're doing. And perhaps, and who here, let me confess something I typically do these days to make my work easier. When I draft an email sometimes, if I don't have time, I just put in the topic points, the rough draft, put it in ChatGPT, and then I'll send, and just edit it and say it again. But it's my idea. It's just that ChatGPT has helped me professionalize it. But I cannot now just, out of nowhere, not understanding, just put something into AI and then, and just put that in. So basically, long story short, this is what so we give people a template, like we say. Long story short, some people just pop that thing into ChatGPT, give it some random instructions, and then ChatGPT, especially ChatGPT, gives a very summarized version of whatever you do, and it wasn't correct at all. And then they submitted that. And obviously you can see this thing is AI generated, and we just put it to the side and say, look, we're not looking at this thing, we're looking at the guys who actually put the effort in. Some guys were dealing with the typos, grammatical issues, you can see this people already tried. And those guys were the ones who were mostly successful because I understood their business and got the funding. So that could be the pitfall of it. And then I remember, because we typically put the entrepreneurs on a WhatsApp group just for discussion, one guy was very upset, because they were saying, one of the reasons why do we get funding high? Because everyone, obviously, unfortunately, sometimes when it comes to grant funding, everyone feels entitled to the funding. And then I was explaining to them, one of the reasons is because people generally put effort into the submissions to just use artificial intelligence. And the guy was saying, but you guys told us to use artificial intelligence, now you're using it against us. But again, obviously the guy was very upset and such, so he goes, even went to complain to NDP about it, and it came back to me, but we explained to NDP, like, look, this is actually what happened. But yeah, long story short, AI should be your assistant, but it should not be what you use for as a sole tool for output, especially if you don't understand what you're doing. That's just perhaps a good example of how AI could unfortunately lose your opportunities.
Yeah, have the ideas first before you just start asking ChatGPT or whatever AI that you use. All right, so our discussion is on finance, it's about banking, it's on fintech, entrepreneurship. Please, the floor is open for questions. If there are any burning questions in the room, please, this is your chance.
Good afternoon. Thank you both. This question is mostly for Josiah. So we touched earlier on regulatory compliance and regulation concerning fintech and finance in general. And I think Tata Shaanika had a similar topic that he brought up on his panel, where he said we're more in line with the European model when it comes to risk and finance overall. And I think the fintech sector in Namibia, we see in South Africa, there's a lot of fintech startups. And South African regulation is not that different from Namibian Namibian legislation and its foundation. Yet we don't see the same amount of fintech startups in Namibia, even though it could be one of our strengths, in my opinion. So, do you have any concrete plans on engaging policymakers or being part of a working group in order to help streamline the legislation? Because the way I see it, if we don't act fast on this, South Africa is going to take our lunch again.
So, so basically, I teamed up with another guy who's a payments guy expert. So we're trying to do something within the fintech space, right? And then we're busy registering. I just wanted to show you how upset sometimes our regulators are. We're trying to register a business that in such, and then just to get a name approval from BIPA these days. They told us, no, we cannot because of what's in your description of your business, we just cannot approve your name. It needs to go to, we need to get Bank of Namibia to sign up on a name. And I'm like, a name? I might not apply for the license later on for them to give. So first they need to approve my name. What if I even decide not to start the license because some business just not there? And that is, anyway, so they sent the thing over to Bank of Namibia, and then, and lo and behold, we sat in a name approval meeting with the director of payments at Bank of Namibia. I'm like, isn't it a waste of people's time? But anyways, I'm just, and then they denied it for whatever reason, and we need to get a new name, and so it goes, which was later approved by NAFISA. But my point being is, that is a level of bureaucracy we're sitting with in this country, unfortunately. I was the other day I was at an NIBT event, and you're not going to speak of names. Someone was speaking, and was saying, and someone was very enthusiastic. The new gentleman who's leading NCCI now was saying, look, we have a beautiful country, you know, and with peace, law and order. Why are we not getting investors in this country? And the simple answer of NIBT was, look, we have so much bureaucracy that it turns away our investors. And that is definitely something we need to fix, unfortunately. And then if that type of bureaucracy is applied to fintechs, you know, it's really, you know, it is going to, be a single hope, even though we have all these other initiatives to try to improve on it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's definitely something we need to work on, although there is, I believe, a world from government. But it's something that I feel government officials sometimes don't speak to each other. There are those ones who are very progressive, by the way, what we do our country forward, and then those other ones are very bureaucratic, stick to the red tape, and then they just block each other. And then there's no progress that moves forward. And I think that's definitely something we need to kind of address in this country.
Extend an invitation to all entrepreneurs in this room, and to both of you as well. We have assembled 2 working groups, one for the Ministry of ICT, and now we're starting one on the fintech as well, where entrepreneurs and anyone interested in the space who is interested in changing the policy, we should all come together, because the way we see it, we're not in competition on this, but we have to work together to actually be able to grasp these opportunities. Thank you.
I think overall as a country, there is steady progress. But it is perhaps slow, but there's progress nonetheless. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen, let's say, the policy developments, the sandboxes, and those are the first times the central bank and NAFISA are even doing a sandbox. So I don't think other countries got it right the first time around. Even countries like Egypt, they had regulatory sandboxes, and these things also evolve with dialogues like this. It's not change and disruption hardly ever comes easily. It takes dialogues like this. It takes people like Yesaya or even entrepreneurs such as ourselves to also contribute to that dialogue. Externally with regulators or even internally, because even corporate, there's a lot of politics. I'm building a fintech within a bank. That's in short what I'm doing. And within a traditional setting. So I could totally relate to some of the things that Yesaya was saying. But the fact that the bank was open to even saying, okay, this is what we need to do. A product turned it into a fintech business. That's openness, that is progress. So I think in closing, the country is making steady progress, but there's a lot of room for growth. Yesaya earlier mentioned that there are pockets of things happening. And I think at some point we will see convergence. And usually the people who are starting the dialogue, such as the gentleman there, you will usually face the most resistance because you're initiating things that the country has never seen before. The mindset change will take a while, but we persevere. We hopefully will then get to the level that other countries and jurisdictions are at. Because we can't get away from it. We have to enable that space for fintechs and diversification of the industry. Not just have the traditional parties, but also make room for these fintechs as well. So I think that's yeah, that's what I have to say to that. Thanks.
All right, decide.
Thank you very much. And I think I need to agree wholeheartedly with what Keke said. There's, as much as I said a few negative things about what's going on in government, there's a lot of positivity as well. A lot of, in particular, younger, Namibians who are working within governments that are really pushing change through. Again, I've worked with the individuals who are on Nampisa's fintech, management team. In fact, I was invited to sit on the panel to judge some of the fintechs that we'll be presenting in, I think, 2 weeks' time, Nampisa Sandbox. With Bank of Namibia, I've also worked with their with the Sandbox team as well. Brilliant people, really trying to push through change. With many other ministries I've worked with as well. So a lot of positivity is coming through. I think we just, especially at senior level, perhaps those individuals that have the final say, I think there is a mindset change that's needed there, but I think in general moving towards the right direction. And also to those who are developing fintech solutions, I think we're at the time where in the next 5 years, those solutions will definitely take off in Namibia, given the changes that we're seeing coming right now. So please start, work on it, but understand what you're doing and understand your market, and you'll succeed. Thank you very much.
All right, a big round of applause.
My name is Mesindano Shaanika, and I'm an electrical contractor, but professionally I'm a performance management specialist. First of all, I think I would like to give a lot of applause to Mesindano for initiating this discussion, and also for the panelists who really made time to come and share with us. It's something that we need to applaud and that we need to encourage. Being a performance management specialist and tend to be electrical contractor, I think I would just want to share some lessons, more especially with the young people in the room. I think most of the panelists, they really focus or they really emphasize on the issue of collaboration. And I would really want to give some advice to the young people in the room. Yes, we talk about collaboration. We talk about if I don't know anything, I can engage another person. But I think the issue of attitude is really something that we need to take seriously, more especially if we want to work with other people. I've noticed that, for example, in Namibia, we have this practice of, if I have an opportunity, I can just get a partner, whether it's an international partner or a local partner, as long as those people, they know what they are doing, I'm just there to enjoy the benefits. What I would love to encourage the young people is to say, whatever collaboration that you might form with other people, whether it's an international partner or it's a local partner, please demonstrate your value to that partnership. It's very, very much important, because nobody wants to work with people who are not committed and they are not prepared to walk the journey. We do really have a lot of people who, yes, I know who, and I think I can bring this investor in, but they are not prepared to do the work. So when you talk about young people wanting to enter the entrepreneurial journey, it's something that we need to take seriously. And as I said, the attitude, it's one of the things that I think the young people really need to work on. I just want to give a typical example when I mean attitude. As an electrical company, we get a lot of requests for internship, more especially from the students from the NIT, as well as some other vocational training. These people can call your office without even introducing who they are. And then you hear, hello, do you guys offer internship? You don't know who you are talking to. You don't know whether from which institution, from which sector, from which industry. And as I said, it's really, really something that the youth needs to work on. When already a person, you are looking for an opportunity, and your attitude doesn't really add up, nobody wants to work with people who do not have the right attitude. It's really, really something which I believe that the young people need to work on. And I think the last advice that I would like to offer to the young people is to say, I'm not an engineer. Let me just take an example. I just want to encourage you. I'm not an artisan, I'm not a technical person. I've tried to establish an electrical company that I'm working on. If I can do that with my performance management and organizational development qualification, you can also do that. So I'm just trying to say, whatever that you are passionate about, give it a try. It's possible. Yes, there are those obstacles, there are those storms that will come your way. That's life, isn't it? And as I said, repeating myself, I really, really give an applause to Mesindano to really bring people together, more especially the youth, to really get to learn from other people. Yes, even with my experience working in the corporate industry, there are a lot of things that I got to be reminded today, but I know them. So attending this type of platform, they only not serve as learning new things, but also we also get to be reminded of the things that we know. Thank you so much.
I am the brother of Mesindano Shaanika, his younger brother, and I'm very happy to be here, and I'm proud of what he has accomplished here in bringing everybody here. And I think this is really just wonderful that us young people are able to be here and learn from people who have experience in these things, because obviously those are the best advisors for us. I think for me, one of the most, or the one that I'll take maybe most to heart personally, is when work ethic was spoken about. And I think it's actually very important, because I really believe a lot of problems that we have in life, especially ones that even me myself, when I complain about things, I know where it comes from. Because a lot of problems that I have are problems that I myself created because I didn't go that extra mile that I know I could have. And I think that when I see a lot of other people, even my peers, complaining about certain things, where they are, even if it's like, oh, they may be making excuses, that at the end of the day just kind of boils down to, did you actually give it your all when you tried? Because I think it's easy to blame other circumstances, a lot of other people, but then you know yourself the situation that you're in, and I think that work ethic is very important in that regard. Let us take accountability as well, and I think that we all work harder, we'll all just create a better situation for ourselves overall. And I think also what my Mr. Shaanika said, he's my father, of course. When he said you have to position yourself to kind of contribute to growing markets, basically. I think that's also important, because then it's like, it touches on the point that I think was made a couple of times, that you don't have to be an expert or know everything about what you're getting yourself into. You just have to take the skills that you already have and apply them, and use those skills that you already have to contribute the best that you can into what you're trying to get into. So I think that for us, there's always a way. We can always find a way. I don't think there's too many situations where we are truly just unable to do anything. And so I think take what you have, take what you know, because even that, and obviously with the expectation that you'll still learn about these things, but I think that's also an important point, that kind of that's that whole thing together. Like, you don't have to know everything about what you're getting into. When you get into it. Thank you.
It's been a day of insight. It's been good to spend time with you all. I believe it's been an empowering session as well for each and every one of us. But I also believe that at this moment we are full, as in we have received the information. We've heard from people, we've discussed, we've thought, we've networked. I hope we will do some more networking afterwards. But my intention is not really my intention is not to keep us here for too much longer. I'm not gonna say things I don't have to say, just because I have a closing remarks of 10 minutes. So I want to thank you all for coming and to appreciate your presence, the contributions you've made, the energy you have brought to making this not only an informative but a joyful first edition of the Roundtable Discussion. Like we've been saying, it's going to be better every time. Next year, same time will be here, not in this venue, but we'll be there. So, like I said, this is the end, and I just hope that, especially for us on the younger side, we don't take this just as a conference. It was just held because somebody felt like doing something. There is a real burden and a real sense of purpose behind this. Because the truth is that each and every one of us is here for a reason. Like Ms. Shaanika touched on, the purpose behind what you're doing. And the importance of chasing purpose rather than money and status. So that's just what I want to say. And for us, as we round off, I just want us to close off with a closing prayer. If we can just all rise to our feet and bow our heads. May we pray. Heavenly Father, God of heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to gather in this place to discuss things that are pertinent to the nation, things that will drive us forward. Lord, we pray in the name of Jesus that you would cause it that we would not allow anything that has been brought forth to remain here, but may it really bring us to that productive future that we are all contending for. We pray, Heavenly Father, that you would unite us, that you would strengthen us, and that the wisdom and the light which has been shared today will remain with us and carry us into our destinies. I have prayed in the name of Jesus. May you take glory for everything that comes forth from this conference, because the Roundtable Discussion is your idea. I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you for coming. I appreciate you once again. Roundtable Discussion, we will be here.
We just attended a very successful roundtable discussion organized by Mesindano Shaanika. It was a great platform where young people came to discuss issues that matter with regard to how to get into business, how to deal with fintech issues, how to get access to funding. I think we just want to encourage young people to continue getting together, sharing ideas and making things happen, and also for them to know that the future is in their hands.
This was an event for the youth. It was a roundtable discussion where the youth that were gathered here at this event were looking at the Namibian economy, the opportunities within the economy, but particularly what value they can add to this economy through entrepreneurship and professional skills. So it was an event where the youth could discuss ideas around entrepreneurship in Namibia and the opportunities that exist in the Namibian economy.